What's going on? What's going on? Appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. As always, you got your local realtor here, Garati, and the mortgage dad, Ronnie.
What's going on,
Uh,
everybody?
yep, just wanted to kind of talk about the pride of home ownership. I kind of feel this is a good topic to go into, especially with rates being where they're at today, inventory still being where they're at, to where you may have some individuals on the sidelines saying, "Hey, we're going to wait." We're going to wait for rates to drop. We're going to wait for more inventory coming into the market. Well, while you're waiting, you may be putting yourself in a disadvantage to where, hey, if these things do happen in your favor, more inventory in the market, rates are lower. It's just going to bring more competition. It's going to be a bidding war to where ultimately, if you're in a position where you can buy today, meaning that you know where you want to live and you can afford rates are today, long term or more so historically, home ownership has always benefited people. Uh, at the end of the day, to where hey, there's no reason to kind of be on the sideline. It's just more so just having the right people in your ear, from your realtor to your lender, to let you know, hey, Mr. Marcus, I'll make it a name. Hey, you're in a position to buy it today. Why are you waiting? Let's go ahead and buy today, because we ultimately 10 years down the road, you're going to thank me for this. 10 years down the road, you're going to look at the equity you've accumulated in your property, and now you're in a position to do a number of things, whether it's refinance, whether it's sell the home, or whether just continue just to pay down the mortgage, to where hey, now you're in a better position long term because you actually got into the market versus waiting.
Yep. I think there's a few different stereotypical people out there, right? So if you're, say you're younger, maybe not married or have
Mm,
kids, and you're living somewhere and you're like, you know what, I may pick up and go somewhere else next year, right? I like that,
yeah,
flexibility. Then yes, maybe you don't buy, right?
yeah,
So we're not saying everybody needs to buy, but let's, kind of talking about, but if you are somebody that says, you know what, I like the area where I live, whether you are settling down, have a family, kids or not, but hey, I want to be in this area long term. Like, we all don't have a crystal ball, but you're right. Some people's factor is I can rent for this much or I can buy for this much. And right now, if you were to buy a home, you're probably paying more than what it would cost you to rent. So that's probably some people's dilemma right now.
hmm,
I want to look at my monthly cash flow and hey, it's cheaper to rent.
yeah,
But to your point, right? So it's a long-term goal, right?
yeah,
So rent, you could be paying two grand a month. That's $24,000 a year that
mm,
I'm not going to say you're throwing out the window, but like there's no return on that.
yeah,
Versus, hey, maybe I'm paying 3 grand a month, but now I have a house and I've got an asset that, typically speaking, goes up over the time.
yeah.
So it's not only what's cheaper, right? So you bring up good points to really look at it, right, and see what
And
fits your person.
and even from a lender standpoint, dealing with clients that did purchase, and let's say 5, 10 years, or even 15 years into their home ownership, and their mortgage itself, if they didn't do anything as far as refinance, like what are their options to kind of leverage the equity they've built if they've been there for, let's say 10 plus years, because it's pretty much safe. If you're 10 years into a mortgage, it's safe to say you have some equity.
Correct. I would even say if you're 5 years into the mortgage, the way the
Especially,
market's
yeah,
been
especially
going.
in today's market,
But
the past 5 years, yeah,
so yeah, if you bought 2019, even 2020, like
yeah,
you're obviously sitting in good shape. But we know that hasn't been the norm, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
historically, over time, so someone that's been in the house for 5 to 10 years and maybe did not refinance, or maybe refinance in the last 5 or 10 years, yeah, there's equity there. And even I have clients to this date, even though rates are the highest we've seen in a while, still refinancing. And a lot of questions, well, why would somebody refinance from a lower rate to a higher rate? And the most common one is, you know, life happens, right?
Yeah,
So we've got, whether it's credit card debt, kids going off to school, families growing, inflation, it's just, you just can't keep up. And now all of a sudden you have this other debt or other expense that may have come to the table. And you've got so much equity in your house
yeah,
that luckily, you've got somewhere to tap into and get that. So, right now, what's very popular is a HELOC, home equity line of credit, or a second mortgage. So, theory, you don't need to touch your first mortgage.
hmm,
Um, you can, every scenario is different, right? Some are doing the second mortgage at a little higher interest rate. and some are just refinancing the whole whatever it is that they do it.
Hmm.
There's no one size fits all, right? It's
Yeah.
all about the person's situation.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying earlier, also depends on the person's profile. If you're a single person, obviously you may not decide to, hey, I'm willing to wait it out. I'm not in no rush to buy. Now, if you're someone who's newly married, expecting the first child, second child, or third child, life happens to where to where you have to kind of, see your situation and say, hey, I makes sense for me to buy today's market. I'm in a position where life is telling me to buy, but not only that, I have the income to actually purchase. And going back to what you were saying, as far as down the road, the options that you have to leverage the equity in your home to where you can do a HELOC, a second mortgage, a refinance, or even sell the home because you have enough equity to where, hey, I want to sell the home and move somewhere else. And the great thing about that is you don't have to pay taxes on those gains. So I know for me, the biggest takeaway is just the pride of home ownership and what you can do with it long term. And it's kind of, I like to say, it's almost like betting on yourself. It's like a hard asset to where, like, hey, I not only can I afford this, but long term, this is going to benefit me. It's going to benefit me as far as what I will be able to do with the equity. As far as what, don't really know because life happens, like Ronnie says, but you have options. And who doesn't love
Right.
options?
And
God
the
knows I love options.
one thing, and I'll use my own scenario, is I want to say 10 years ish ago when my wife and I got married.
Mm.
We both had our own properties, and luckily at the time, we decided to hold on to those properties and rent it out and say buy a new property. So we were very lucky in that instance that we didn't have to sell one property to to take money to buy a new property. So yes, we were lucky on that. But also, it was a discussion, right? Oh, are we going to be landlords? Are we going to be whatever that is? All this stuff that you think, is it worth the headache and all this and all that. And looking back, one of the best decisions we've ever made, because
Mm.
fast forward 10 years,
Yeah.
real estate has done well. So
Yeah.
we have now all this equity access to us. And the one key thing that I think is underestimated, and which you mentioned, is it's kind of tax free, or it's tax free until you sell, which if you hold on to it, it's tax free type of thing. So you have access to money that you can pull out and not worry about, I'm gonna have a big tax bill this year because I just pulled out X dollars out of one of my properties. Yeah, so it's a little different, and a lot of people aren't thinking of that. And even our own personal home, right? We've
Mm.
got
Yeah.
plenty of equity that we can pull from. So having your foot into the real estate game, and even again before, we had the same concerns. Where's the market going? Is it going to
Yeah.
go up? The
Yeah.
interest
For
rates were
sure.
a little bit higher than
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
before. So similar to the same topics, easier to look back now because we know how history played out.
Yeah.
But it's one of the, for us personally, it was one of the best decisions and helped us tremendously financially to do that, make that decision.
So, for those, I believe this is more of like a stock market quote. You can't time the market. You have to be in the market. If I'm saying it correct,
So yeah,
basically,
so it's not a matter of when timing the market; it's how long you've been in the
you've
market.
been in the market. You can never.
So
You
yeah,
don't.
so we'd
Yeah.
all love to time whether it's
Yeah. You can't.
Apple,
Yeah.
Netflix, whatever it is of getting in, but we know if you were to bought a while ago,
Of
you're
course.
you're going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Not when
So,
it hits the bottom, whatever. So
and
um,
ultimately, it goes back to what we always preach. You just want to make sure you have the right people on your team, from your lender to your realtor, and just making sure that they're informing you correctly and educating you, and just looking at your personal situation, or I like to call your profile, and where you're at in life, and what makes sense for you today. If you can buy it today, then yeah. If you can't, that's okay. But you just want to make sure you know all the facts, and the best way to get all the facts is from the right professionals. So
and there's, you can put a comment in the section, you can put a house. There's calculators in theory out there that'll say if I buy this house for X dollars, it'll fast forward what expectations of appreciation is going to be over the next, say, 5 years. And it'll show you, wow, in 5 years, you're going to have this much, say, equity in the home, or this much, say, to, assets to you that you're going to have just by paying your mortgage, right? And as rates go up, that's where a lot of people build a lot of their wealth, is just buying a home.
yeah, well, I like to say it's about being strong and steady, not slow and steady, but strong and steady. It's long term. It's a long term process. Things don't happen overnight. It happens over time. So with that, I I think it's pretty much, we've kind of talked a lot about information when it comes to the pride of home ownership. As always, stay local, stay informed, and not influenced. And we appreciate you guys' time.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.